Well, for more, we can speak to Markus Zeener in Berlin, a senior fellow at the U.S. German Marshall Fund. Hello, and thank you for speaking to France 24. Scholz is the first G7 leader to visit China since the pandemic. What's he looking to get out of this visit?
Well, definitely he's trying to kind of ease tensions that have risen up lately between Germany and China. There was a deal, actually, where the Chinese were trying to get a larger stake in one of the terminals at the ports in Hamburg. And there was a lot of fuss actually going on about how big this stake could be. And behind the scenes, there was a lot of hand-wringing how much actually they could get. And it was eventually they came up with a 24.9% share for the Chinese. But I think it was a spotlight on how the relations actually are between China and Germany because of the war in Russia and Ukraine. So there's a lot of discussion going on to whether the Germans really should make deals with a country like China that has become a real dictatorship.
Yeah, because that's coming as Germany or Europe trying to wean themselves off of Russian gas. And now key German infrastructure in the hands of Chinese, minority stake, as you point out. Is this a misstep by Scholz?
Well, I would say if you look at the map in Europe, the Chinese are invested in a number of ports, so it's not really a unique kind of situation. On the other hand, I think awareness has built up quite significantly because of Russia. Now, you have to look thoroughly in how actually is this relationship looks like in terms of trade. Of course, there's a lot of trade going on between the two countries, but I think the main question is to what extent is Germany dependent on certain materials they can't get from anywhere else. And here we're talking about rare earth, we're talking about raw materials, we definitely talk about the Chinese market where German car companies are selling big time and where they're really dependent on their own well-being to sell cars there. So it's more about going into detail and looking, we don't want to decouple from China. At the same time, Germany has to be very careful to not repeat the same mistake they did with Russia.
Yeah, and if we go back to Angela Merkel, one of the things she was always saying was change through trade. I think one of the issues here, though, is that Scholz went on this trip alone and Brussels seems to have been left on the outside.
Well, the original idea was that he travels together with Emmanuel Macron from France, but this didn't materialize. I think the reason was that there are quite some disagreements on a number of fronts. I think regarding change through trade, I think this idea has proven to be not working. We tried that, Germany tried that with Russia, and it didn't work. And it doesn't work actually with China. We have a lot of trade, but we don't see much change politically. I think the recent party convention in Beijing was a clear indicator, actually, where the journey is going, so to say. And I think it's going to be becoming more authoritarian, more autocratic.
What do you make of the criticism that if Scholz did have a wider delegation, if Emmanuel Macron was there, if he had consulted with people in Brussels, that they could press China, they'd have a stronger position to lean on in regards to human rights, in regards to Russia's position in Ukraine? Is that sound criticism?
Well, I think from a Chinese perspective, Scholz is seen as a kind of pragmatic, rational person who sees that there is also something to gain from this mutual relationship. I don't know whether this really applies to most of the other European leaders. So I think the Chinese are very happy to have Scholz, who they consider, again, as a very pragmatic person. On the other hand, if you see what's going on within the German government, and you mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of infight going on. The German foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, she's currently in Münster at the G7 meeting. She made clear on her recent trip to Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan what she thinks about this trip of Mr. Scholz. Not too much, actually. I think she believes that we should be very careful in fostering our relationships with China, because it's really an autocratic state, and we should not become dependent again, in particular when it comes to strategic investments.
Markus, thank you so much for your time and your analysis. Markus Zeener from the U.S. German Marshall Fund.
Thank you.